Well, very happy to be here. Excited to have this chat with our state lawmaker. Yeah, it's a real stage.
Okay, that's probably better. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, we could turn sideways so we're not so blinded.
So I can see you.
Yeah. But we're here in Representative Nosse district. This is the actual district.
Yes, I represent Revolution Hall.
That's right. Very key important thing. You've been here many times, I'm sure.
Yes, I have.
But we're here today to talk about Bitcoin and your journey with Bitcoin and how you sort of came into having an appreciation for this space. And we want to get into all that. But first, I think it'd be really important for people that are here to get to know you a little bit better and understand where you came from.
That's easy.
Let's start with your background. Like, how did you get into politics? Have you been in?
Okay, so I was not always the handsome-looking 58-year-old politician that's in front of you right now. In the 80s, I went to a rich kids Catholic high school, and I was not athletic, and I could not get elected to student council at my high school. So I went to college, went to Miami of Ohio. I grew up in Ohio, outside of Akron. And my sophomore year, I was able to be the student senator for my residence hall for my dorm. And I was lucky enough to have a senior student body president who thought that student government could do more than plan dances and movie nights. Not that there's anything wrong. I like dances and movie nights. Okay, I like concerts. But he thought student government could actually lift up things that young people in college cared about. So I got politicized through student government at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. My senior year, I was student body vice president. My bad acne and everything had kind of cleared up. I got a better haircut, and I got elected. And one of my jobs was to monitor the Ohio legislature for tuition and financial aid, okay? And I couldn't, it's the late 80s, so if there's internet, it wasn't available to college students yet. Cell phones were not a thing for college students. I didn't have a car. The capital for Ohio was 3 hours away from my campus. So I spent that year, a fifth year of college, getting the Ohio Student Association started. And then I was the first paid executive director. And then I was a cook at night at a steakhouse to pay my bills. And then an opportunity to be a professional student activist here in Oregon, doing the same thing, but I wouldn't have to be a cook at a steakhouse. I could just be a professional, opened up. I applied, got hired, and that's how I got to Oregon. So I lobbied the Oregon legislature for university students for 2 sessions. It was time to stop being a professional student activist. And then I went to work doing political work and then organizing work for Service Employees International Union, which is a very important union in the state. I kind of burned out on them. I worked for them for 8 years. They're a wonderful union, but a demanding employer. Yeah. Yes. And then, so I went to work for Oregon Nurses Association in 2004. My husband and I adopted kids. I remained politically active with schools and education, with our union, with Basic Rights Oregon, which is a large gay rights organization in this state. And then I had the chance, the union movement watched the progressive women's movement in this state teach women how to run for office. So just about any Democrat woman politician that you might know of in the state of Oregon has been through this thing called Emerge, which just teaches women how to be better at running for office.
Well, now we have the entire Democrat federal delegation at the House level.
Pretty much everybody, every woman politician in this state, with maybe the exception of Governor Kotek, because she just got into politics a little bit younger before that thing was going, went through that boot camp. So the union movement said we could teach union people how to run for office. And so I got around it when I was young. I got around it when I was in college. I thought politics was important, and I went to the training, and the training was so good, I was like, there's no way I'm running for office. This is really hard. I never did campaign work, okay? I did advocacy. But then my state rep decided to run for something else in 2013, and I had the chance to put my training to use. So I was in a 6-person primary.
Wow.
Yes. And running for office, if you want to, I'll really sell it to you. But the way to think about it is it's a daily job interview. So you think about what you did to get a job you wanted, okay? And you're doing that constantly when you're running for office. It's a daily job interview.
Yeah, I mean, because everything that you do gets analyzed by the voters, and then you get attacked or applauded for potentially every single vote. I know a lot of votes are boring, but
yes. And again, when you're running for office, you might work really hard, okay? You might be the second best choice, okay? Like the employer might have really liked you, but there's only one job and you didn't get it. Like, it's one of the few things too where you can work really hard and at the end of it have absolutely nothing to show for it. Like when I failed at something at the union, we didn't fundamentally fail, okay? Like we didn't make as much progress, the raise wasn't as good, you know, the employer overwhelmed us, but like we lived to fight another day.
Yeah, big failures in politics, your whole job can go away.
That's right.
Very quickly.
Yes, that's right.
And so it's tough. And I think a lot of people, you know, it's good to get that perspective from someone like yourself.
So that's how I got in.
Yeah, and then you run, and you've been now a state lawmaker for 10 years.
So every 2 years you run to be in the Oregon House, and every 4 years in the Oregon Senate. And I've had a difficult election since my first one once. I took a vote that made labor unions, which I got my start in, very upset. We had to do something to control the cost of the pension.
That's a big thing here. PERS, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
PERS. So I took a vote because it's math.
Yeah.
And we didn't have enough money to cover that cost, and we had to do something because we needed that pension to be reliable and be there. And so that drew an opponent, but it was during the pandemic. The pandemic started when I had to campaign again, and I was able to win. So I haven't had a tough race in a while.
Well, let's get it. It's really helpful, I think, to give context for the folks in the room and then for the folks that are going to be watching the recording to be able to understand your background. But let's hop into the Bitcoin side of things.
Let's do it.
So I email you, like a year and a half ago?
Sounds right.
So, approximately. And I'm like, you know, hey, I'm your local crazy Bitcoin guy.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about Bitcoin. And all I remember is funny. Of course, you accept the meeting. And some background, too, is Representative Nosse is a very active lawmaker. And I knew this before I reached out because...
That's good. You did research. I'm impressed.
I had the
a lot of people don't.
I see you writing all the time. You're like in every article. I feel like you're constantly getting delivered to my inbox in my mailbox. So, but during the pandemic, during the shutdowns, we had 2 fitness studios that we had actually owned here locally, and my significant other had reached out to you for help, and you were like right away helping her. And
yes.
So I knew that there was a good chance that this could be you'd be interested in at least talking to me, given that as a constituent. So we go and we meet at what is it? The favorite coffee spot?
We Press, which is just it's got a new owner. It's going to change names, but it's for the moment it's still called We Press. It's on Hawthorne and like 17th.
Is it staying open? Because
It's absolutely staying open.
Okay, good. I heard it might not stay
it's
open.
going to they're changing their name.
Okay, great. The legendary coffee place stays open. So,
My office.
The one thing I remember going into that meeting is the first, we were like 5 minutes in, and you just looked at me and you're like, I'm just so glad you're not crazy.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure I said that. Yes.
Because I mean, you hear all these crazy things about Bitcoin online.
Did not seem crazy. Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't.
And actually, everybody I ever meet that really talks with me intelligently about this does not seem crazy at all. Which is like that was an aha moment for me.
Yeah, you said that a couple times backstage and in our conversations that you felt like a lot of people in this space are very intelligent about the way they speak about Bitcoin.
Yes.
And they might not know the whole space, but there's usually something that they really hold dear about Bitcoin that they tend to be able to speak really effectively.
They've looked into it.
Yeah. So probably would be helpful. We're going through this educational process. You know, I do this for a living. This is my work. I work with lawmakers. Yes. I educate them. I actually had waited quite a few years to do anything here locally because I was like, well, I don't want to come to Oregon and try to start talking to lawmakers and like screw it up.
Okay.
Like,
all right.
have my own lawmakers don't like me.
Sure.
So I finally come and I meet with you and we sit down and we're having conversations. But maybe tell people a little bit about your feelings about Bitcoin before we even met.
Okay. So I'm sure none of you will be surprised by this, but most people think this is some kind of scam. Okay. Or they think it's a way to like hide drug money or prostitution money. I mean, and now, too, you also hear about, other cryptocurrencies that flame out, or their founder, reserved a bunch of it, and then they flamed out, or they're doing something illegal. Like, everything most of us know, and politicians, good ones, are news junkies. So they consume a lot of news. It's the easiest way to get information and be conversant about all sorts of things. And so what I knew about Bitcoin and what I knew about cryptocurrency is what I read in the news. And I read good newspapers, like I read the New York Times, I scan the Wall Street Journal, I read the Oregonian cover to cover. Well, I mean, like, not just, any website.
These aren't like fringe news.
I mean, I look at fringe things once in a while too, but only after, like everybody does. But like most politicians are consulting mainstream news sources. Even conservative ones have to look at the New York Times.
Yeah, for better or for worse. I mean, that's the situation that we're in, is where lawmakers are forced to find their source of truth from a very limited number of outlets. And unfortunately,
I mean, part of what people need to understand is I vote on what a judge is paid. I vote on forest policy. I vote on street and sidewalk. You know, like just about any kind of policy that you can think of, there's a law or regulation that the state legislature can touch around that. So it's hard to be knowledgeable about so many things. Like, it's just impossible.
and that's something I tell a lot to voters and to constituents and people that are active politically or want to be active politically, is that's one of the struggles of being a lawmaker, is that you have to be an expert on so many things. I mean, let's assume like a federal lawmaker, even like, you know, border crisis, homelessness crisis, Gaza, you know,
They have a lot of staff to help them, but yes.
That's a good point too about sort of the value of being active at the state level, is that there is a lot more need for help from state lawmakers because they don't have this huge amount of staff. I mean, how many people are you able to employ during this?
Most legislatures in the United States are not professional full-time legislatures. Of the 50 states, probably about 10 are really actively meeting all the time. You can make a decent middle-class living being a lawmaker. The vast majority of legislatures in the United States, it's considered a part-time job. If you're in leadership, you have run an important committee, or you're the speaker or the Senate president, maybe you make a little bit more, for certain roles. But again, for most legislatures, it's a part-time job. In Oregon, you get 2 staff people during the session to help you. And then when we're not in session, I go down to 1 person, and if I've saved enough money, I can have a summer intern.
So it's very limited resources. And so that's why it's very valuable to have groups out there that can be supportive, or even your own constituents coming in and educating you.
I mean, we get a lot of education from advocates. I don't like to use the word lobbyist because that has like a very negative connotation. But I mean, anybody coming to talk to me is a lobbyist, small l, at some level. Like, if you're going to talk to a politician, unless you're just trying to get to know them for fun, like if you don't have an ask, if you're not trying to get something from them, you're kind of wasting that person's time.
It's, in a funny way, it's kind of true. Like, a lot of times when we go into offices where we just try to do education, sometimes they're like, "What, you don't need anything from me?" Like, they're almost like disappointed.
It's a little, yes.
So transitioning back to the journey with Bitcoin, you start off, obviously, just like most people who haven't had an opportunity to deep dive on the issue, feeling like this is probably a scam, this is probably a Ponzi.
Yes. In fact, I called around about you.
Okay.
And
glad I know I passed the vetting check.
That's right. And several people said to me, "Why are you interested in this?" Like, I mean, again, like, it just, for most, I would say I think that the scale is starting to tip, but most politicians start off with a negative connotation to this.
Yep. You'll even find that a lot of the people that are in this room who are all in on Bitcoin from the sense that they're like big believers of it, probably started also from a negative point. Like, a lot of people hear negative things or see negative things, and they start to study and research it, and then they're like, oh wow, this is not what I thought.
That's right. I had that experience as well. Talk
about, you started off on like the place that most people start off, but then talk a little bit about where you are now and how you're starting to, and you say this many times, and I want to give you credit because a lot of people in your position don't do this, is you commonly say, "I'm not an expert, I'm early in my understandings," but the things that you say to me is like, honestly, like light years ahead of where most lawmakers I talk to.
And you must have done a good job. So here's, I think lots of lawmakers are actually pretty smart, okay, which is probably not your stereotype of what you think about with politicians, but actually, like, to be able to get to a certain level of political office, you have to have some brains, some communication, some sense, some ability to organize yourself, because it's difficult to run for office, and then it's difficult to receive a crush of information and figure out how to vote, all right? And so what I would say is, when my colleagues are sort of confronted with, like, well, why does this dollar bill, why does this have value, okay? What makes this intrinsically valuable? And you have to sort of fundamentally try to grapple with that for just a minute. I mean, suddenly what you're doing becomes very, very interesting, right? Like, why is gold valuable? Like, why not let solving a math equation be the way that you get to have more money? Like, I mean, it's just like immediately, I think because money is so fundamental to the way everything works, like, and people have a pretty foundational understanding of it, like the grappling with like, well, yeah, we're not on the gold standard. This is all based on faith. This is all based on like confidence in the American government. I mean, that overwhelms you pretty fast, I think, for most politicians. And then I think it just gets really interesting.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I love that you're pulling out dollars on stage to give the presentation here. I'm sure people are also appreciating that to an extent.
I thought about doing that.
Yeah, you brought your prop. Yeah,
yes,
I got.
yes.
I'll have to make sure I do that next time. I like that. Tell us a little bit about some of the thoughts you've been having more recently, and even when we first met, you started kind of going down this thought pattern, which is that you see the whole crypto space, and then I come to you and I start, I'm saying Bitcoin's my focus. Of course, I tell you about the whole space. I don't try to tell anyone they need to be Bitcoin focused. I just give them my viewpoint. But then we're meeting, but then eventually you come here. Well, not here, but last year's conference. And we were out in the hallways chatting, and you started to say, this reminds me a little bit about like church.
Correct.
And tell people what you meant by that.
So I grew up Roman Catholic. I still go to Mass, even though I'm gay and married and believe in a woman's right to have an abortion. And when I say this feels like church, all right, so I went to the conference because I wanted to understand Bitcoin better. I went to all the like basic 101 workshops that you held to get a better understanding of this. And then I think I sat in some sort of larger like lunch check-in, and they showed a video, and they said, here's what the mining is doing, and here's how this place in this country that doesn't have a reliable currency is generating solar energy and creating wealth for their community. And then somebody got up and said something inspirational, and what I said is like, this reminds me of church. It feels like the best parts of church, where people have come to a belief system that organizes their lives, and participating in it gives them joy, makes them feel good, makes them feel like they're doing something that's meaningful, that's changing things. So like early Christianity, not what it's become, okay, was about like, okay, I'm just gonna hang here for just a minute, okay? What if the miracle of the loaves and fishes, right, is not that Jesus suddenly made a bunch of fish and bread available to 5,000 people that sat around, okay? But instead, that people came to listen to him and they shared what they had with everybody. Now, according to my religious ed instructor, that was not a culture that was going to share outside of your clan. So you're suddenly with 5,000 other people, most of whom you don't know, and you make a choice to share extra food that you have with other people that you don't know very well. That's a fundamental cultural transition, okay? And having a money that is not going to be subject to the whims of governments, and it makes it possible for like so many places in the world where they don't have a reliable currency, they don't have a reliable banking system, or they just don't have access to it. Like, it was clear to me that people are like, this is something fundamental and foundational in the way that I think like early Christianity must have spoke to some people about like, this is a completely different way to organize the world that might actually be better, more kind, more humane, and freeing. I mean, that's really what it felt
for that, guys. That's,
I mean,
wow.
So that was real. I mean, like, that just kind of blew me away.
I mean, you're honestly.
And I didn't feel like those people that were getting up giving witness, okay, were like lying or bullshitting.
You're definitely hitting on something that is very much a part of why people are interested in Bitcoin, why they organize their entire lives around Bitcoin. I mean, I've essentially all I do is work in Bitcoin all the time now, and it started 4 years ago. I mean, I've got it in 2017, but about 4 years ago, I was like, I have to be in this space. But where does that where does that come from, that desire to really make a difference? And also, I think it would be important to hit on how you view that is not something that you're seeing in the rest of the financial space or the crypto space.
So, I mean, here is, I think, the thing that is fundamentally fascinating about Bitcoin, which is there's not some investor waiting in the back, hanging on to a bunch of shares or a bunch of the coin, waiting to cash out and get super rich, you know, once there's a moment to do it, like we do with companies, like Apple, like any company that you think of, like the founder hangs on to some monicum of their investment, and at some point is able to get rich, make money, you know, and like that is pretty fundamental to what we hear about in the news with the vast majority of what's being attempted in the cryptocurrency space, and that's not what's happening here at all. Like, this just feels fundamentally different. And when people sort of hear about it, they go, oh, this is not what I thought it was at all. Now, I don't know, maybe somebody's going to show up and say, no, really, here's the big scam. I've been hanging on, and now I'm going to cash in. But, like, I don't think so. It doesn't seem like that's part of what this is.
Well, and a lot of it, too, is that even the founder, all the coins that he got, and now, of course, they're held in a wallet that he, you know, hasn't touched, and most people believe he's passed on or has, you know, doesn't exist, or maybe he was a group of people that burnt the keys. He had to mine those coins. He had to actually go out and earn those coins.
Okay.
Whereas, like, a lot of the crypto space, or even anywhere in the financial sector, and it's normal business, right? Like, you want to launch a company, you want to go public, you keep some shares for yourself, and then you sell some shares to the public, and that's fine. But it's just so different.
So I think the other thing is that I think, okay, I got into politics to make things better. I wanted things to be better for university students, okay? I thought college was amazing. It changed my life. And I wanted to make it more affordable and more available to more people, okay? And politics is the way to do that in our society. There's other ways to make things better, okay? But, like, if you want to make a fundamental change in something, engaging in your state, your city, your country's political process is the sort of organized way that we have to sort of work out the rules of society and make change and make things better, all right? And I feel like the Bitcoin people that I talk to feel like this is a way to make the world better. I mean, why is housing so expensive? Why do I have to stress out to have health care? Why can't everybody earn a living that allows them to sustain themselves and their family? And then if they want to do really better, they've got to have a good idea and work harder, okay? Like, and like, we are organized in the United States in one of the most capitalist places, and I think it's very stressful to live in this kind of existence. And clearly other parts of the planet, there's some places that are more hyper-capitalist than we are. I think maybe South Korea comes to mind. But other places in the world, they don't live with this hyper-capitalist ethos that we do. They have a fundamental baseline that they make available to their residents, and they're struggling with some of that. You know, European democracies who have set a lot of this up are struggling with that a little bit as they've gotten more diverse and a lot more immigrants, and we could break that all down if you wanted to. But, like, that was also part of what I observed about Bitcoin people, was that, like, you're also wanting to do this because you see a way through money to maybe make things better. Like, inflation is really bad. Like, this is like, I'm pretty comfortable. I'm not a rich person by any means, but I do fine, okay? And, like, I wasn't really impacted by the Biden post-pandemic inflation, but, like, you can clearly see that people were, because they voted to have something different because of that. And, like if Bitcoin could solve inflation, that would actually be amazing.
And that's a big part of why, you know, there's a lot of reasons why people get into Bitcoin or why they are passionate about it, but certainly the impacts of inflation and the fact that it is, you know, essentially an invisible tax that you didn't vote on.
That's right.
You know, there's not going through Congress, it's not going through appropriations.
So shocking to all of you, I'm a liberal Southeast Portland Democrat. I would be really hard pressed to come up with anything that I think Donald Trump is doing right now that I agree with, okay? But he is onto something about trying to bring interest rates down. Like, that's a fundamental, like right now, part of the challenge for Portland to kind of come back and get more housing built and bring our housing costs down is interest rates are too high.
Yeah, they're very high, and it leaks into everything else.
That's right.
As well. And then at the same time, if you want to hold on to the dollar, like it used to be back in the day, you could hold on to the dollar and it would hold its spending power. But now the spending power is constantly dropping because of that inflation, and so you're forced to make investments.
Right.
And it also gets the rich richer. This is a big progressive value concern, that as you print more money, well, wealthy people aren't holding on to dollars. They're holding on to assets. They're holding on to stocks. They're holding on to real estate. So all those assets are inflating, while everyone else is just trying to like escape into the next level.
And I think partially what I found fascinating about Bitcoin is that, so as a gay man, I think I also have a libertarian streak every once in a while, because I was forced to, as the culture, I think it's a lot more accepting, and certainly it is in Portland. Like, I don't really get any grief for being a gay man, but like growing up in Ohio in the late 80s and the 90s, that was not a cool thing, okay? And so there's a certain libertarian-esque part of me that's like, why do you care who I have sex with? Like, why is that a thing, okay? And I think the sort of libertarian, like, why does government have to be the thing that controls this, especially when people can get in government and do bad things? Like, why should money be fundamentally controlled by political leaders who don't always necessarily have the best interests of the voters in mind?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it is also, financing the war machine. And I talked about that a little bit. I was like, Bitcoin, or the dollar is essentially in some ways like backed by the military that we have, because we can enforce all these rules across the world. And then additionally, Jerome Powell, he's just essentially waking up and deciding what the interest rate is going to be for the,
that sounds
really
like
the entire
Donald
planet.
Trump. Yes, exactly. I mean, so Trump is right about that. I don't think the president should control the interest rate. Like, I do think in the current monetary system that the vast majority of us operate in, like, that tension between Congress and the president and the Fed is probably an important one to maintain. But it would be like, I think getting there is really hard. I think it's easier to see Bitcoin as the answer in other parts of the world where you don't have such a hegemonic currency like we enjoy in America.
Yeah, I mean, then you've touched on it a couple times here, but there are so many parts of the world where, they don't have, we talked about it in the green room, that we have a pretty exorbitant privilege in the United States to even have the dollar. And I know a lot of people here have a lot of concerns about how the dollar is being treated. And of course, I think many people in the country do as well. But we're very privileged to have that
100%
versus what else is available out there right now.
I mean, I might worry about inflation, but like, most people are not fundamentally worried about the American currency.
But there's large parts of the world where they just don't have access to stable currency or even stable banking.
Correct.
And so they are just getting whatever they can. And in some countries, they are saving in alternative ways. Like if you want to build a house, some people are saving in bricks instead of trying to save in their local currency, because it gets so devalued. And then
or they don't take out a loan. Like most places, they build their house along the way, right? They don't mortgage to get a home the way that the American system does. And because our currency is relatively reliable, we can sort of do that.
But Bitcoin provides a way for them to have an alternative and superior currency to invest into, and also to store their value in, where they don't have to worry if the government is going to come in and pillage their bank accounts. That does happen in a lot of these third world countries.
Correct.
It's a very big problem. And then I think another area to touch on.
So I'm not a big internationalist. Like, I think if I was more of a person that did work internationally and interacted with international charities in other countries, I think I'd see the value of this even more. Like, the blanket of the dollar still kind of protects me a little bit. keeps me invested.
Keeps you warm at night. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's bring it home a little bit then, with regards to Bitcoin's potential and this idea of like financial inclusion, and maybe it'd be good to just talk about you and other Democrat colleagues, other progressive colleagues that care about financial inclusion, or why you think that's valuable. And then we can talk a little bit about the potential for Bitcoin to play a role there, because Bitcoin is the first true asset in human history that is accessible by anyone. Doesn't matter your race, gender, sexual orientation. Doesn't matter your immigration status. You know, some people might not like that, but like it doesn't matter to Bitcoin. You can access it, and I think that's really that's a really.
I do too. I think that's very powerful.
Transitioning back to sort of like the political environment here in Oregon.
Okay.
We had a bill.
Yes, it didn't go very far. So in the Oregon system, it's not hard to get a bill introduced. I mean, it can be a little bit, but like we have a long session and a short session. How many of you are from Oregon?
Oh, most of you.
Okay, most of you. Okay, so hopefully you know this. We have a long session in the odd-numbered year. It goes from like the end of January to the end of June. And elected politicians are allowed to introduce an unlimited number of bills. That's not a really good idea, but like there's no bill limit, okay? And the easiest thing to do for a politician when their constituent has an idea is like, sure, let's get it drafted, let's try. Like, because what I have learned in 10 years of doing this is me telling you like, well, that's not a good idea, or it's not that popular, or you haven't thought that out very much, just makes you mad. Like, let the process try, okay? Like, I don't have to be the gatekeeper. I don't have to be the one that kills your idea. You'll learn along the way what's killing your idea, but like, I don't need to be that gatekeeper. Like, because then, so you feel good. Like, I said, sure, let's do it. Let's try.
Honestly, that's very different from most lawmakers, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate.
They need to like get my 101 and like say, this is how you maintain some popularity, especially when you're likely to be taken out, right? Like if you have to run a proper election where occasionally somebody might be able to take the job away from you. Like, just say yes. Say yes as much as you can, because you're going to have to say no at some point. You're going to have to cut people's retirement benefit a little bit. Okay?
I really appreciate that perspective. I actually haven't heard that from you, and I really value that, because a lot of lawmakers don't think or act like that. And so you are taking risk. You know.
Well, all right. So here's what I would say. So like, you do take a little bit of risk lobbing an idea out there that maybe doesn't seem very good or is half-baked or not really well thought out. But most of the time, I'm able to say, well, wait a minute, like, investigate this, look into it. Like, okay, I took a chance on a bill to decriminalize prostitution, sex work. They don't like to be called prostitutes. They prefer the term sex worker. And my legislative assistant was freaked out. He's like, we cannot do this bill. And I said, only a gay man is going to be able to do this. Like, my sexuality is already suspect. There's no way that a straight male lawmaker could put a bill out there to decriminalize sex work. Like, that would immediately create too many weird images in the minds of that guy's voters, okay? But my sexuality is already suspect. And why is this criminal? As long as there's consent, okay, where you're not coerced, why do I care? And so, like, that was thank you. And so that was a fascinating conversation. It just got people thinking. Like, and as long as you're like, so like, you know, don't just file any bill with no thought, okay? Like, at least have a smart person to help give you some thought and, you know, to say, okay, here's what you can say when this first person asks you something. But like, I've rarely been punished for just giving an idea a chance.
Yeah, I mean,
rarely.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you've had. I'm going to have to ask you for more stories on bills that you've worked on in the past that you've taken shots on.
That went nowhere, by the way. I mean, I think the Bitcoin bill has a lot more chance.
I think it does too, and we did get a really good hearing out of it.
Right.
Which
you changed Representative Sosa's mind. I think he's thinking about it now. He had the same reaction. Like, so he's a lawyer. He's out of Hillsborough. He's a trial lawyer, so he makes his living suing bad guys, okay? People that have wronged somebody comes to them and says, I've been harmed, and he goes to battle on your behalf to try to get the harm rectified, okay? And so he's like every other politician. He's a lawyer, and he's like analyzing this as best as he understands it, and most of what he's heard is negative, okay? He didn't even want to give it a hearing, but he broke down, all right? Maybe he met you, or I said, at least give it a hearing. And because, again, my experience, the vast majority of Bitcoin activists that I've met are intelligent, like, you just kind of wear us down. like in a good way.
I'm sure some people have warned some people down into buying Bitcoin that are in the audience today. So we are persistent, that is for sure. Let's talk about the full process of what it will take to get a bill like this across the finish line here in Oregon. And for those that aren't familiar, at Satoshi Action, we have a model policy called Bitcoin rights. We essentially try to protect the right to self-custody, the right to run a node.
And you've passed it in some other states, right?
Passed it in 5 states.
Okay.
It's protecting 20 million Americans today, these laws across different parts of the country. We've introduced it in red and blue states. It's only passed in red
I don't
states
think
so
your
far.
issue is Democrat or Republican.
It's not.
It really is not.
Some people are trying to make it be that way.
Yeah, but I think there's, again, the Republicans have libertarian-esque thoughts about government, just like Democrats do too periodically, all right? And it sort of taps into that sort of, you know, the American Revolution was in reaction to the British government. It's baked into our DNA. Our Constitution, all of our rights are really about, we don't want an oppressive government to be able to do anything. It's like probably what's going to stop Donald Trump from being able to do a lot more than otherwise might be able to, because there's so much government in America, okay? And the government that we have, the rights that we have is about not letting that government oppress us. Like we have federal government, state government, county government, city government. We have school government. Most countries in the world, their education system is federalized. They don't have local school government as well. And so even as grouchy as I might get about Donald Trump and the Republican Congress, there's only so much they're going to be able to do. They're just not going to be able to grab all the levers of power the way that other countries, where their system is a lot more federalized than ours is.
It is true. I mean, there's a level of decentralization in the U.S. government that prevents someone from coming in and taking it over.
So in the Oregon system, you get somebody to introduce a bill. I mean, maybe you're going to be like, really? But like, I don't think our government in this state is that corrupt. I really don't. It's pretty easy to meet your politicians and walk, time permitting. Like, part of the biggest challenge, actually, I think, for like regular people to meet a local elected state representative or state senator is like, because it's not a very lucrative job, lots of my coworkers have to hold down another job to be, and so they're literally working something else while they're trying to fit this in as well. I think there's benefits to the state to having legislators that have to earn a living and a variety of professions and experiences show up into our Capitol. But it does make it a little bit challenging sometimes to schedule. But like, it's pretty easy, I would argue, in a state of 4 million people to be able to get to 90 different humans and pitch an idea. And then if you're lucky enough to have a politician take your idea that's also in the topic area. So we do everything in committee. I'm mostly healthcare. Bitcoin, to use a college analogy, this is an elective topic for me, okay? Most of what I spend my time on in the Oregon legislature is healthcare, mental health, behavioral health, and Medicaid. That's my major. That's what I spend the bulk of my time on. And so to the extent that, like, we have a finance committee, we have business committees, to the extent that you can get a legislator from those committees, those topic areas, to lift up your idea, then that person is always in front of the chair who's kind of the gatekeeper, being able to go, Dennis, aren't you going to schedule my bill? Can I get a hearing? Come on. You know, like, it's just other legislators, frankly, if you have one that's willing to do a little bit of work, they're the best lobbyists.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting them into a point where they're favorable to it. So what do we do between now and next legislative cycle that can make a difference for this type of bill?
I would say get somebody committed to drafting. You can try in the short session. It's a little harder because in the even-numbered year session, we only meet for 5 weeks, and legislators don't get an unlimited number of bills. They only get 2. And so there's a little bit more vetting that goes on. Like, if I don't think this has a chance of passage at all, I probably don't want to waste my 2 things on this one. But to the extent that you have, you've looked at the members of the business committee or the consumer rights committee, and you've got somebody that is willing to lift up your idea, and they can get a hearing, like, you're halfway there. And I don't think it matters if it's a Democrat or Republican. In fact, sometimes Democrats, we like to have a Republican be the person, because then we can say, see, we did something nice for Republicans. It was bipartisan. Like, we get a little bit of good feeling about doing that periodically. So we're not, if the idea is not crazy or bad, we'll give a Republican bill hearing.
Talk a little bit more about the bipartisan approach in Oregon. Obviously, it's a supermajority?
So right now, Democrats are in control of both houses of the legislature, and we have all the statewide elected offices. And frankly, because of when Governor Brown was in office, there were several vacancies that came up in courts. Most of our courts are judged by left of center politicians, broadly defined. And it'd be fascinating to see how we became a less purple state and we get bluer and bluer all the time. That's a whole nother topic. But it's really we do try as Democrats when we can to work with the other team on things because it just feels better. It's like the only way I can explain it. And I also think in this state, until super recently, you had moderate Democrats from other parts of the state. You had moderate Republicans who represent other parts of the state. So there was some natural bipartisan stuff. Like they could see the mutual benefit of each other's ideas, or would lend a vote once in a while for something controversial. And so we try to do that. And I will just tell you privately, with very few exceptions, I believe the other 89 people that I work with in the legislature, they're just doing the best they can to represent their voters as well. I mean, they will tell you, sometimes a Republican will tell you privately, I don't agree with everything Donald Trump says, or I don't like that approach, but my voters like him, so there's a certain amount of that I have to cotton to.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. That's part of the, like you said, holding the job down is that you have to, every day,
you're
analyzing
not, like I'm lucky, all right? So this area of the world that you're all in this conference in, it's a very ideologically coherent part of Portland, okay? I make jokes with the Republicans in the legislature that, no offense to them, I say, but like, you're the most Republicans I ever hang out with, okay? Because you just don't choose to live in inner Southeast Portland. There's just not a lot of Republicans living. I have some I represent. They occasionally email me and complain or offer me some insight, but for the most part, and even people that are not affiliated with a party, if you're unaffiliated and you live in Ontario, you're probably more of a Republican or more conservative. If you're unaffiliated here in Southeast Portland, you're probably more of a Democrat.
Yeah, it's becoming very, the state is very much a Democrat stronghold state now.
Yes, like it's very blue in the metro area. It's very blue in sort of the college towns. And then it gets more purple as you move out to the suburbs. And then it gets very red in the more rural areas of the state.
So closing out here, we've got a few more minutes. There's a couple things I want to touch on. One, first, just want to thank you for being interested and continuing to be interested. You came last conference and now you're here speaking and you're saying some things that people are even clapping towards, which I'll tell you what, I work with a lot of lawmakers and they're very smart people, but again, it's hard to wrap your brain around this stuff because it's so complex. There's so many things to it.
But then on another level, it's not. Like, why are gold and seashells valuable? Like, why is that,
You just have a natural propensity to understand it, I guess. So I'm telling you, I work with quite a lot of lawmakers.
Compliment.
Some of them are great, but it's just, I just do want to give you that compliment. And thank you for taking the risk to work on the bill. And thank you for pushing the chairman to help us get a hearing. That was what made the difference. I don't think they cared about me much at all. You are.
But now they're a little more interested.
Yeah, they are. Well, it was a great hearing. They really asked great questions. It wasn't, and I've told you, I've been to hearings where I'm talking and they're like, okay, we get it. See you later.
Yeah, no, we don't do that. We're a nice state. So
yeah.
Oregon is nice. I mean, in terms of our politics, like that's part of our passive aggressivity. So those of you that aren't from Oregon, if someone says, well, maybe, that's probably no.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're very known for our passive-aggressive nature, that's for sure. Always be kind.
No is rude.
Always be.
I didn't want to say no to you. No is rude. You don't want to hear no. Who wants to hear no?
But he did do the hearing. It went well. And there's been a long track record here of you supporting this space. And I also want to make sure that it's always a goal of mine whenever lawmakers are showing support for this space, that I show support for them as well. Fortunately or unfortunately, there has been talk that you may end up actually having to face a real primary. And this is like brand new news. Like you agreed to speak here before we even knew this.
Yeah.
I would love to give you the opportunity to close out and maybe just tell people a little bit about the race and obviously, I think they're going to want to support you because of your support for Bitcoin. But I'll let you close out on that, and then
Okay,
we can...
sure. Well, that's very kind of you. So, I hate to say unfortunately, but like running for office is part of the job, right? Like that's what I signed up for, and it's a privilege to be able to like elect your leaders. All right, like other places in this world don't have that, and I'm pretty sure my voters are going to be happy to return me to office. I think I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm definitely running again. I've done a good job. I reflect their politics pretty well. But I'm likely to have an opponent, and it's going to be super interesting because she's the president of the Portland Association of Teachers, so she's a fellow union activist like I am. And I just think that she is a lot younger, and she's trying to figure out how to make her way in the world and make a difference when things are really complicated and challenging in the education space. And at any rate, I think I'm more capable. I think at this point in my journey, I will be a better representative for this area of the world. And I think because of the things that I'm working on, particularly with regard to healthcare, which is in deep trouble right now in the United States, I should be sent back. So if you liked what you heard from me, you can Google me. It's just Rob. My last name is spelled Nosse. There's no other Rob Nosse pretty much out there, I don't think. And every politician's got a website. Most of them are pretty ugly and not that useful, but they've all got a donate button, and you're welcome to go check it out. And my website's not that great, though I do think there's a pretty good photo of me. It's one of the better photos I've taken.
It is. I can vet that photo. So
Yes.
I'm going to be donating to supporting Representative Nosse. He is likely one of the most important Democratic lawmakers on the Democratic Party, as the Democrats will...
I'm not without influence. I'm not bad at this.
But I'm not kidding you when I say that his quick and, I think, rapid on-take of this issue over the last year and a half is something that I have not seen with many of the lawmakers that I speak to. I have great meetings with a lot of offices, but very few of them within 6 months of talking to me go, I think this Bitcoin thing is different from the rest of everything else. And I did not ask him to say that. I did not force him to say that. He came to that on his own conclusion. So I'm going to be supporting Representative Nosse. I'm going to be donating $1,000 to his campaign. I highly encourage you to also support his campaign. If you want to get to know Representative Nosse a little bit better, he's going to be around at 5:30. There's going to be a happy hour upstairs, and it would be a great opportunity for you to come up and ask him questions, learn more about his race, and see if it's something that you want to support. Or if you're not in a position to donate because you're stacking sats and you need to get to your goals on your sat stack, maybe you could volunteer for the campaign when the time comes, or you could volunteer to help give him a new website. He had mentioned that he's looking for a new website. So
we're going to transition it.
Yeah, we're going to have to get you actually onboarded today. You got to take Bitcoin here now.
Okay,
That's right. Should we get him to take Bitcoin?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. You can do it. Last note here, too, is the person that he's racing against. This is the one thing that actually caused me. I won't speak too much about the candidate directly, but I'll just tell you who they are. Does anybody remember the teacher strikes here that happened previously? She was the one that led those teacher strikes and had kids out of school for 3 weeks straight. So if you weren't a fan of the teacher strikes, could be another reason to potentially support Representative Nosse in combination with his support for Bitcoin. So thank you again, Representative Nosse. Please, round of applause.
Thank you very much.